What is up everybody, my name is Tyler Potts and welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to be creating this simple drag and drop kind of like Trello style app. We're not focusing on doing any sort of dynamic data yet, but we are going to be doing in the future a Trello clone, which I hope everyone will enjoy. But for now we're just going to be creating this simple drag and drop item menu thing where it allows us to just drag and drop. This is just to get you to used to using the drag and drop API, the JavaScript. It's very simple and it's very fun to use, so you can create loads of different cool things with the drag and drop API. This is just one of them, but without further ado, let's continue on and start the video. So first things we need to do is obviously we need to open up our terminal. Well, we don't have to, I just prefer to use terminal. I'm gonna go into my projects folder. And I'm going to make a new, actually no, let's go into the 100 days of code because it is day. So we need to make a new one. It is day 77 and it's going to be called drag and drop. Nice, let's cd into day 77. And let's now just basically create our files in here or make a directory called drag and drop. Cool. cd into drag and drop, and now I'm in there. I'm going to open this up, so I'm going to use code dot, and you can open this whatever text editor you want. I prefer to use VS Code. I'm going to put this as a separate window. I'm going to create a new file called index.html, and I'm going to use emit tab, so exclamation mark tab, to create this boilerplate structure, HTML structure. We'll call this drag and drop. Hit save, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, or maybe too much, maybe that'll do, just so you can see the text a little bit better. Let's minimize that. Now we need to create two more files. We're going to create a main.css and a main.javascript. So they are all the files we need, so I can just hide that item over there. And in our markup, so with the drag and drop markup, we could create a dynamic markup which where we can add new lists. So you saw we had like 5 lists there. We could create new lists, and then we could use dynamic content to create separate list items, which we will do in the Trello clone, but for now we're going to hard code these items. I'm going to create a header because I like having headers because most apps have a header or something similar. Drag and drop, and that should be fine. I'm not really going to style it up too much. I'm going to create a div called lists. So this is going to contain all of our lists. So I'm going to have a list times 3. So there's an emit thing you can do. You can say you want 3 lists. And then inside these lists, I want to have a list item. There we go. So we've got 3 lists with a list item, and we're just going to say list item, list item, list item. Nice. So that is looking pretty good. Now, when you create, so basically what's happening, we have this list. So this is just the list of lists. We then want to create a list item, for example. So we should be able to create like 4 or 5 list items in there. So this was what happened in a Trello app, but so we have this list item. But the list item is this is the draggable item here. So we'll be dragging this item here around. So these items. To make those draggable, we have to add an attribute called draggable, and we're going to set this equal to true. So we have a lists with a list with 3 separate lists with 3 separate list item, well, 1 separate list item in each list item. And that is basically how our markup's going to go, and that's all we really need for now. We're going to move each list item into 1 actually, because then we can demonstrate it from one moving into the others. You can put them wherever, but for now, and I'm going to give these numbers. So we're going to say 1, 2, and a 3. There we go. So we've got those with numbers. So now if we go to our markup, we need to start a surfer, and to start a surfer we need to run you can use npm to install. So you go npm install globally live Surfer, and that will install what I'm about to use. You need to know how to use npm. This isn't an npm tutorial, so I'm not going to go through that. You can just double click your HTML file to open this if you really want. But I'm just going to go live surfer dot, and that's going to open up our new drag and drop. So that's what it looks like. Doesn't look great, but we will style it up now. So the first thing we're going to do is add some resets. I'm going to make sure everything has no margin. Oh, that's not margin. No margin, no padding, and we're going to set the box sizing, box shadow. I don't want to imagine everything having a box shadow. That'll look crazy. Box sizing to border box. We're then going to set the body background. I'm going to set this to FFCE00, and then we're going to set a font family of Roboto, Helvetica, and sans serif. We don't need the Roboto font, I just wanted to throw it in just because I have it installed on my machine. And we're going to use the app, we're going to display it as flex because we want it to basically take up space. We'll set the width to 100 VW and the height to 100 vertical height. We're then going to say flex flow column. I'm then going to say header, and in the header we're going to say display flex, justify content center, align items center, and the height of it is going to be 60 pixels. Hit save and that should be fine. We don't really need a background on that. It should just be fine. So we need a lists, and we want to display the lists as a flex item because we want them to basically show in like a row. Do we need a flex flow on that? No, we have to flex flow of column up here. Let's move that so it looks right. There you go. Okay, so flex one, we need a width of 100% because we want it to take up its all the width it can, or well, I guess if it's in a flex situation, then it's going to take up all the room it can anyway, right? Width 100%, just in case. And then we're going to add an overflow X of scroll, just in case we have more than, let's say, 4 or 5 lists. We don't want it to like break the page. We just want it to be able to scroll left or right. And that's what this is going to do for us. We're then going to add a lists dot list. So there's going to be each individual list. We're going to also have these as flex. So this whole thing is built on the Flexbox model just because it's super simple to use and we can get a system all set up in seconds. So we're going to have flex one, going to have width 100%, min width of 250 pixels, a max width of 350 pixels, so we're covering all scenarios, height of 100%, and a min height of 150 pixels. We then want to add a background color of RGBA 0.1. I'm going to do 1. I did do it as 0.1 or 2 in my demo, but I want to try something new. And we'll give it 15 pixels of margin on the left and right, so it has some spacing, a padding of 8 pixels, and a transition of, or would say all, 0.2 seconds linear, just because we're going to add in some hover effects and stuff basically. We're going to say lists.list item. So we're going to target our list item. We'll give it a background color, and we'll set this to a light gray. We're going to add a border radius of 8 pixels, some padding of 15 pixels, 20 pixels on the left and right, 15 on top and bottom, and we're going to have text align center. So all this stuff I'm doing here is just setup work for before we get onto the actual work for the thing. So if we refresh, we can't refresh because we need to actually link this in. So we're going to say link, and we'll say main.css, and down here we'll say script source, and we'll say main.js. Let's hit save, and there we go. So now these are draggable items. because we added a draggable attribute. If we set this to false, so we'll set item2 to false, refresh, so you see we can drag item1, but item2 doesn't, it's not draggable. And that is because of this reason. We need to add draggable onto it because it allows it to be a draggable element and enables the event listeners for the draggable. Well, enables you to use them. So, we got this drag and drop. This looks alright. We could probably make it a little better, but for now, this is fine. Now, we want to go straight into our main.js now. So, in here, we need to get a few items. We need to get all the list items, and we need to get all the lists. Normally in a Trello app, we would have dynamic data, so we would have all the list items and would dynamically create them all and add them to an array. But for now, because we're creating, it's all static, we're going to basically grab the static items using JavaScript, and we'll say list items. Set this to document.query selector all, because we want to get multiple items. And we're going to say list items. This could get us all our list items. We then want all our lists and set this to document.query selector all. Query selector all and .list because we want to get all the lists. Now we're going to set a variable here, and this variable basically is going to be the item we are currently dragging. We're going to say dragged or dragged item is equal to null because there's nothing which is being dragged currently. We're then going to say for, and we're going to create a loop. So we're going to loop through all the list items and then loop through all the lists. So we're going to set I is equal to I is less than or list. Which way do we do it? Do we do list first or list items? Probably list. Yeah, no, we need to do items first. So we just want to do list items dot length. The reason we want to do items first is because we're going to be nesting in the what's it called? The lists. Because we want to basically be able to have the list items available to the lists and not the other way around. So now we're going to loop for that. We now want to say let item or const item, because it doesn't need to be changed. Const item is equal to list items I. So it's going to get us the current item in the list or in the array. And now we want to add a couple of event listeners, but we're not going to do that straight away. We're going to create the loop for the lists. So we're going to say lists dot, we're going to say for let I is equal to 0. I is less than lists dot length I plus plus. And now we're going to say const list is equal to lists I, not O, I. Also, we want to kind of change this I to be a J or something because we don't want it to be the same as up here because I was going to overwrite each other if we need to use it further down the line. Although we shouldn't, but I mean, we could. All right, so now we've got these. Now this is basic JavaScript. This is the stuff we're not going over. And this is just the stuff we can do easily. This is the stuff I expect you to already know before coming into a drag and drop tutorial, if that makes sense. So we can still drag these around, but there's no event listener. So if we open up the terminal on the right here, you'll see when we drag and drop, nothing's happening. We need to set up some event listeners. The first one is for the item. So we need to set up an event listener for each item. We want to say add event listener, and we're going to listen for drag start. Now, there's going to be a function, but we're going to pass through an event. Or not, we don't really need it for this one, but you could do. Now, we want to say the dragged item is equal to this item we're currently, or we could say this. Because we want to set it equal to the current item we're dragging, which is equal to this item, which we drag start. I'm also going to console log this so you can see when it gets called. So we're going to say console.log drag start, and then we're going to pass through the event, which we're going to have here. So if we refresh, now if I start dragging this item, you'll see we get a drag start variable with this drag event. And there's not much really here. You can have this data transfer, which has the drop effect allowed, files, I'm pretty sure you can drag files, items, so items in a list, types, etc. So this stuff will go into more advanced in the Trello clone one, but for now, there's just an introduction to drag and drop, as I said. So we know when that happens, but now we need to listen for when the drag ends, because once the drag ends, we're going to need to do some other things. So let's say function, and let's say, we just want a console.log drag end for now, and I'm going to remove the event from this because we don't need it again, not yet. Hit save and refresh. So now we're going to drag it and we're going to let go, which is going to end the drag, so we're no longer dragging, and it's going to say drag start drag end, drag start drag end. Now what we need to do in here is we need to say dragged item is equal to null, because we're no longer dragging the item. But we don't want to do this too early, because if we set it to null when we drop it, it's going to ruin the drop event, because we're going to create a drop event. But we need to create a drop event on the list, because it needs to listen for where we're dropping it. So if we drop it here, we don't want to say, oh yeah, I append it to one of the lists and it appends it to, let's say, the third one, or it doesn't append it to or it re-appends it back to the first one. If that makes sense, it probably doesn't, but you'll understand once we get further along. So we've got the dragged item set to null. We want to quickly set a timeout. We want to say set timeout, and we say function, and we're going to set the function's timer to 0. The reason for it being 0 is because we don't care about it actually delaying. We just want to make sure it calls this after 0 seconds. So it has literally a 0 millisecond delay. And we want to set to null, because the reason for this is because when we drag, if you notice, when we drag an item, the item is still currently here and we want to hide it. And to do that, we need to say this dot style dot display is equal to none. So we're setting it equal to none, so we're not going to display it. Before this, we want to say dragged item is equal. So when we drag end, we want to say, so let me explain, because this isn't going to make sense. You see here we have to set timeout, but we're not going to talk about this. Let's just say this. So if we set this style to display to none in drag start, and we refresh, and then we go to drag an item, you'll see it's disappeared. We're still dragging it, but we've set the item to be invisible before we started dragging, which means it's invisible, but it's just here. So, but to stop this, we need to set a timeout. So we're going to say set timeout is equal to a function, which is only 0 seconds, which has this display none in. Now, if we refresh and we drag, you'll see it has not disappeared like it should have. And that is because if we said item.style, maybe it's the part where we're saying item. There we go. So it's because we had this. We're going to set item because this isn't working. So you see we can drag it and we can let go. Now it is still invisible. It's still here. You just can't see it because it's invisible. Now we need to do the same here. So we need to set a timeout. And after the timeout is hit 0, just so there's a slight delay, we need to say dragged item dot style, if it'll let me, dot style dot display is equal to a block, and then we're going to set it to null because we don't want to set it to null straight away. Now if we refresh and we drag this item, it disappears, and once we let go it goes back into here because obviously we haven't set it up to change position yet. So that is what the timeout is for, just so you know. And to be fair, you probably don't need a timeout actually in here. You just need a timeout for the dragged item null. Because if you don't and you drop it before, well, if you when you drop it, you're going to counteract the drop value, which is going to set dragged item equal to null before we actually drop the item, which means when we use this when we try to append this dragged item to the list, it's going to be like, no, it's null. Why is that? That's why it's in this timeout function. So in the list now, we need to add an event listener to the list, and we're going to say add event listener, and we're going to say drop. We're going to say function with an E or an event in here, and we're going to say in here this dot append dragged item. Now this isn't going to work just yet because we need to do some more things. So if we refresh and we drag and we let go, nothing's going to happen. To drag, if we console log in here, console.log drop, you'll see when we drag and we drop, no function's being called. That's because this doesn't work with the drag for event listeners. We need to prevent the default on a couple of other event listeners. So before this one, let's add in list.add event listener drag over. This is called every single frame the item is being dragged over the list item. And in here we're going to say e.prevent default, or every single time we move the item over it, not as we drag over the item. So this is going to prevent default, which is going to allow drop to work, but we also have to have one more. It's called list.add event listener drag enter. So when we first enter this list item with the draggable item, this is going to be called, but we need to prevent the default, so it's not going to cancel out the drop. So now if we refresh and we drag and we drop, you can see it's already moved. So that is pretty much where we want to get to here. So if we drag this item, we can drag and drop it, and same with this one. We can move them around to any block what we want to, and it kind of works pretty well. Now when we drag, what happens if we want to add some changes when we drag this over something? Well, we can do that. So we've got some events now, right? We've got this drag over, drag enter, and drop. Now we can change style. We could either add classes to these items and then remove the classes. So when we drag enter, we could add a class, or when we leave, we can remove the class, but we can also just do it through JavaScript, which we're going to do. Normally you would probably set up a class as it's better, but we can just do this without the class. So in drag enter, we're going to say this dot style dot background color is equal to RGBA 0, 0, 0, 0.2. So now if we refresh and we drag this over, you'll see it gets slightly darker. That one gets darker. But the problem is here, they don't go back. So we need to set up something else. Here we need to get this, and when we drop the item, we want to say this back to 1. We also want to go back to, we need to create another event. So we need to say this.add event listener drag leave. So this is called every single time we leave the list item with the dragged item, and we want to set the exact same value here. The reason we want to set this here is so if we disable this quickly, just so you can see what happens. Now if I hover over this but I don't drop it in there, you can see it's still got the style appended to it. The only time it disappears if I actually drop it in there. The reason for that is because this style is only reset once we drop it. But if you see here, if we now leave, so we refresh and we hover over it and then we hover out, you can see it changes. So there you go, you've got some sort of hovering effect. So we can drag and drop each item, which is kind of cool. So it's got some dragging and dropping effects. Now you can do a lot more of this. This is very basic. So we've went over a few things. We went over what drag enter, drag leave, drop is, drag over, drag end, drag start. So they're all events, but there is a few more. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what they are off by heart. We can actually go over to the drag and drop. We'll say HTML because I think it'll come up. It is this one, the web APIs stuff. And if you go down, you can see here it says drag exit to. I think that's actually the only one we're missing. Drop drag. So there's this drag one which we're not using. And as you can see, there's loads of different things. You'll need to learn these ones yourself, but at the same time, the only ones you really need to know right now are these 4 here and the 2 up here. So drag start and drag end is for the item you are dragging, and then drag over, drag enter, drag leave, and drop are all for the item you are dropping or dragging your element over. So I hope that makes some sort of sense. But yeah, so I hope this was super easy. It's very straightforward for me. I hope it's straightforward to you. Obviously, you need to know some sort of JavaScript. You're never going to jump into something like drag and dropping stuff from just learning HTML and CSS and then jumping straight into JavaScript. You want to learn all the basics of JavaScript first. So I probably should have said this at the start. So a prerequisite to this would have been learning JavaScript basics. Now, these are different types of event listeners. We could do loads of different event listeners. So we could also append to this. Let's say if we click an item, it selects the item, and then we can press our arrow keys to move it left and right into different lists. Again, that's not something we're going to do in this video. That's just something we can do. So I want to go over a lot of event listeners in the future and some really cool things. So that's what I want to create a Trello clone tutorial, because I think that can teach you a lot from it. So if you're interested in that, then let me know in the comments below. But for now, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then leave a thumbs up for me. It really does help. If you want to see more, then hit that subscribe button. And if you want to get notified straight away and be on the video straight away learning something new with me, then hit that bell button. The videos go live from Monday to Friday, 10 AM each morning, BST, British summertime, British UK summertime, 10 AM UK from Monday to Friday. Sometimes I do miss the video, so if you want to be notified when I do miss a video, or if I'm not going to be able to upload one, head over to my Twitter at Tyler_Potts_. Link is in the description, and you can get notified there. Or I do sometimes try to post on YouTube itself. So again, hit that subscribe button and you'll see those posts I place. For now, guys, thanks for watching. If you have any feedback, drop in the comment section below. Now, without further ado, peace out. What's up, guys? I wanted to give a special shout out to my Patreons for being awesome. So massive shout out to SD Guy, Tacticians, Vincent D, Programmer, A Nathan, 007 and Chris Burrill. A special thank you to Tacticians for buying the Yeti mic for this amazing audio quality, and thank you to the rest of you for being absolutely awesome. Thank you very much, and I will see you all in the next video.